Jesus Christ.
I almost did our Rumor and Innuendo countdown. Yeah. All right, what's up, everybody? This is Dominic DeAngelo. It's StudioOneSports.com, and me and Robert Karpeles of Rumor and Innuendo have a special interview here, none other with Raven. Raven just had his documentary come out not too long ago, quote, The Raven Nevermore, and The Raven Effect. So, Raven, it's good to see you, man.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How has been the reception for you after the documentary's kind of been out on Amazon Prime and out everywhere? How's that kind of been for you so far?
Really good. I've gotten really great response. The only negative I got was that it cost money on Prime. Like it costs like $4.99, which is nothing.
Yeah.
But Prime isn't paying us to put it on, so we have to make the money somehow. And that was the only negative thing I've heard is two people, or one person complained about it, and one person said he was going to wait till it goes on the freebie, till it goes on the freebie channel, which I guess will be in a while. But other than that, as far as the content, it's been overwhelmingly ecstatic. Like you really, but I went out of my way to show a truly warts and all portrayal of myself. It's not portrayal, but I showed warts and all. Like all my negative qualities. Even my friends, they buried me for different things, which I deserved. It's like Jericho says. He goes, people love him or hate him. Which is painful to hear, but it's true. That people do love me, or they love me, which is great, or they hate me, which is terrible. But you got to take the good with the bad. And I deserved, it's my responsibility to been a better human being. I don't think I was a bad human being, but I definitely have my faults, and so I left it out there for the world to see, and that's why I think I had a story to tell. Everybody thinks they have a story to tell, but I actually think I did have one, because I've been through a lot, and I've had some mental illness. I've done some, reprehensible things. I've done some good things. I've been around the business more times than you can say. Not being able to keep a job with any company for more than 2 years at any point. But yeah, it is what it is. It's my story to tell, and I think we told it really well. I think the director did an amazing job.
Yeah. I think how everything was set up, and yeah, it certainly told all that kind of story. I think Billy Corgan kind of set it up in the intro very well. Speaking to like what you were talking about, like you've done some good things and then you've done some things you probably regret and everything to that, but it really encompasses a full wrestling career that I think is attainable. Like the Sabu documentary too was attainable to an outside wrestling audience. And I thought that was what was really engaging about it too, but also for the ardent wrestling fan too. I thought it was really great as well. Right, Raven?
Did Sabu's documentary good? I didn't see it.
Yes, it was good. It was very good. Yes. So it's kind of cool that, yeah, you guys are getting the notoriety and stuff at this point too. So.
When did that come out?
I want to say, I think late summer, I believe, like August or something like that. I'll be happy to send you a link to where to get it and stuff like
that. You know what? I would be lying if I said I'm going to watch it. Sabu was a great guy, but I knew him personally. I don't watch wrestling anymore. I haven't in 20 years. That part of my life is I have a different way of seeing it now, and like I still enjoy it when I go do it, when I perform it, in front of indie shows and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not my be all end all like it was.
Right.
She was the wrestling business was a fickle mistress, and I had enough of her cheating ways.
I can definitely say, look, the documentary was unflinching, and I think the nice thing, for the wrestling fan,
that's a really good word. Thank you.
Feel free to steal that. But the fan is like, I'm not going to pay $5. wrestling fans know when it's a documentary or something and it's soft pedaling and they're leaving stuff out. There was not a moment there where you were not getting the full story. I mean, you can watch that, and knowing that you had the ability at any point in time to say, "Don't put this in, pull that out," it's going to make anyone who watches.
I had full disposal, full use of the veto power, and I never
full Hogan creative control.
Yes.
One of the interesting things that I saw in the beginning of this documentary is when you're talking about your father and what he did for a living professionally with the National Enquirer. And I think kind of one of the first questions that jumped out to me was, the Enquirer, the label on a lot of that's fake, a lot of that's, nonsense. Same thing with wrestling. They both generate a tremendous amount of money and have huge audiences. Did you ever see those parallels in what your dad was doing and what you were doing? And in terms of the
I used to tell him that I followed in his footsteps. He works for a fake newspaper, and I worked for a fake sport.
Love that. I also love the fact that you talked about the WCW video game, and as a Jewish kid growing up, I would have loved to have known there were two Jews on the cover of a professional wrestling video game, but as a kid, never knew that you were Jewish.
Well, here's the thing: is I don't follow the religion. I'm only Jewish because my parents were Jewish.
Right.
Like they didn't have me go to Sunday school. I wasn't bar mitzvahed. So by any stretch of the imagination, I could, I would be slightly accurate if I called myself Jewish. You know what I mean? But
don't take this from me. We need this. Don't take this from us. We got you and Goldberg and like half a Savage.
Basically said the same thing.
Speaking of Goldberg, so I was listening to an interview you did with Chris Van Vliet, and you were talking about your Goldberg match and your Terry Gordy match and how proud you were at how you laid those out. When you go into laying out a match, what's your philosophy? Is it we're going to call it in the ring, or we're going to map out every step, or is there a hybrid? Or
on indie shows and house shows, I just call it out in the ring. Mm-hmm. But on TV matches, because you're constrained by time and you want to maximize every second, I set it up. I basically set up the whole thing, and I think you need to on a TV match if you want to get the best out of it. I think, but you have to be good enough. You have to be able to work with a hand that you're not dealt. Like if something happens and somebody screws up and hurts their ankle. You ever see a guy in their match hurt their ankle and then not sell it because it's not part of the match?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's like, why won't you sell it? Everybody saw you hurt your ankle. Just go sell it. Change the plot. There's nothing wrong with changing the plot. And you have to be, and that's the thing, is you have to be good enough at calling it in the ring, and calling everything in the ring, so that when you need that on a TV match, when you're under the crunch, on the time crunch, it's like, everybody goes like, I listened to David Spade and Dana Carvey's podcast.
Yeah.
And they always talk about how hard it was on doing live TV. And I'm like, shit, we've been doing live TV forever. You know what I mean? Like, ours is just as tough, if not tougher, because we're doing 52 weeks a year, and it's like, but I forget sometimes how tough it is. Like, we don't put any value on how tough it is, but it's extraordinarily tough to do a live program every week and to hit all your cues and hit your numbers and hit your marks and hit your spots. And, I don't think it gets enough credit for that, for doing live TV. Now that I've been thinking about it because of this, the Spade and Carvey show, which is really funny, by the way. It's really funny.
I catch clips on Instagram. Yeah, it's good stuff. It's very good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But what was the point? What was the question?
It was about how you like to build a match, which you answered the two different versions of it, and you are one of the few people who's had to build one of these matches under a number of different regimes. Obviously, the ECW world, the WCW world, the WWF world, the TNA world. Is it kind of the same philosophy across the board for you? I'm sure Paul was a little bit more free because it wasn't live and you could kind of edit as necessary. But was there a space where you felt the most creative in ring?
Yeah, I mean, Portland wrestling and ECW were the two greatest experiences of my life. They were both about 2 years, and I learned so much and grew so much, and had so much after hours fun, and then WCW and WWE, it's more organized, it's more formalized, and it's more, I, in a way I was lucky, in a way I wasn't. Bischoff didn't like my character, he didn't get it. So in that way I was unlucky, but I was lucky in the sense that he let me build my own storylines. After a certain amount of time, he saw that me and Saturn could do our own stuff, and so then he gave us Dusty to help us too, write our storylines, and so that was pretty cool, So in that case, it was pretty lucky, it's a lucky stroke, because he wasn't letting just anybody write their own storylines,
Right. I grew up.
But I also think I earned that because I always kept my ideas in my own level. Like I never tried to go, well, let me beat the Macho Man. The first thing everybody says when they say, what do you want to do? I want to beat the top guy. You have to work with guys on your own level so that they're willing. Also, that way they're willing, or if their guys are slightly below you, then they're willing to do what you want to do. They're more inclined to do what you want to do because they want to get to your level. So they're happy that you're bringing them up along,
That's an incredible piece of advice. I remember when I was in WWE, there were the guys who would. I was on creative.
In your
that's my X account. So I was a writer for 2 years at WWE, and which is such a misnomer because you're not allowed to really do much of anything when you're there. It was Vince's world back then. This was 20 years ago. But the guys who would come to me and pitch those above ideas, folks that folks who some were in the documentary, some who refused to be interviewed for the documentary, would pitch those ideas of, hey, what if Batista and I work next week?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, he's world champion. You're on Velocity. We don't really have a story for you, but I appreciate the time.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Well, so I grew up a WCW kid, and so I wasn't introduced to you until WCW. So the Flock was
never been actually introduced formally.
Well, yeah, formally not. But how did you want to do more with the Flock of where it was going and potentially like what more could have been? Because I know as a kid watching it, I was like, man, they could do so much more with these guys if they like really implemented him and had like more of a direction after like the DDP stuff and everything.
They had their top 10 guys. They're the guys that were in the top. The big show. DDP, Nash, Hall, Flair, Lex. It's like 10 guys, and then they had everybody below them, and they didn't want to change their hand. Which is part of the problem with WCW is it stayed with a pat hand for too long. And so the okay, I sent myself off on a tangent again. What were we talking about?
The Flock. The Flock.
Oh, the Flock. Yeah. Yeah, I'm brain damaged. It's too many drugs and too many chair shots.
I wish Dom had that excuse. It's just Dom.
Yeah.
Just me.
I know you're Dom. I'm not that far gone. But the thing was, so they like Sullivan would always try and beat us. Basically, I'd come in and because the guys would get mad at me because they're not getting any wins. So I'd have to go talk to Sullivan and Terry Taylor. And I go to Sullivan, I go, can you give these guys some wins so they get some, so it means something when they put somebody over?
Yeah.
And he goes, some must die so that others can live. These pecs, brother, they're rock hard. That's what Sullivan would say. And then he would start trying to beat me, but I would come up with a reason why I shouldn't lose. And then, Canyon would always be like, "How come you get out of doing jobs all the time?" I go, "Because when they call me in, they go, we need you to put over so and so," and I'm like, "Well, that's a great idea, but it makes more sense that I go over because of this, because we're doing this with me, and here is that." And they couldn't come up with another idea on the spot. So they said, okay, so they'd let me, so I'd go over. And so Sullivan, it was like a game with Sullivan. Like he would come in, he would try and he would have me figure out for me to put over somebody, and then I'd have to figure out a way, come in and figure out a way to find a way for it to not to happen, and but you can't leave. See, that's the thing is you can't leave the finish room and come back. Like most people, like they would go, all right, we need you to put over so and so, and they'd go okay, and then they'd go and think about it, and they go, I don't want to put over so and so. And they knock on the door and they come back and they go, oh, it's already sent to the truck. Can't change it, you know? and it's because, and that's the thing is, so I was able to think on my feet and realize that I had to get and Sullivan saw that. And so it was like a game with him. Like he would go, okay, I need you to put over so-and-so. And I'm like, well, what about this? Because, because of this. And he's like, all right, you're right. We'll have you go over. And so it was a game, like it was a game with me and him that we talked about, afterwards, years later. And it was like just a funny thing.
There's also enough people I've spoken to in WCW where, unlike now, where it's like there's wins and there's losses, but it's really a matter of exposure and how you're booked. In WCW, if you didn't stick up for yourself, they were just going to steamroll you and you were never going to get any opportunities. So you were sort of forced to always have to, advocate for yourself.
Yeah. Well, you shouldn't have had to advocate at all. It should have been done. Like people shouldn't have had the right to advocate because it's not that kind of, that's why with Vince, you don't get to advocate. He would say, this is what we're doing. And that's what, and if you don't like it, that's, too bad, Right. And Bischoff gave us enough freedom for us to hang ourselves and hang the company and hang everybody and hang them. It's like, I like Eric, it's like, he never liked me, but I think he likes me now, which, really isn't here nor there, but I like him. I like the guy, cause I really respect him because he, after I walked out on them, when they said, Raven, if you don't like the company, there's the door in a big meeting, and called me out, and I walked out. He came up to me later and said, I really respect you for that.
Yeah.
So, so that always earned my respect, that he respected my walking out, as opposed to taking it like in a pissy way. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Right. Yeah. He kind of pushed right back at him for that.
Yeah.
I definitely respect the fact in watching the documentary. And again, guys, shell out the $5. In fact, shell out the $15, buy the thing, because you're going to go back and watch this thing more than one time. But one of the most interesting parts about that is you talk about when you were working in the office in WWE, WWF at the time, and that you were actually there working with Vince. There were a lot of like still photos of you and Vince posed together. What was your day in, day out with Vince?
I would write the second run shows, All American and Mania. So, which would air matches that had already happened on Superstars, which was the main show until Raw came along, and then Raw became the main show. And I would air the second run shows. I would have to pick the format, which took me all of 5 minutes to do. It wasn't a hard job, but they thought it, they thought it was a hard job, so, but I'd see Vince every so often, you know what I mean? And then I didn't see him every day, but you try to avoid him.
Yes.
Right.
Completely co-sign on that one. But it's great that it sounds
he's
like
intimidating. He's real intimidating.
I bet. Yeah. Right.
Well, he was. Because it's his company, and he wields it with an iron fist, or he did, And so, when you have to go talk to him and you don't have, you're young in the business like I was when I was Johnny Polo, it's intimidating, it's intimidating talking to your boss in any field of endeavor.
No doubt about it.
He was the strangest one because Vince, he wanted you to confront him to show that you were a man and you were going to stand for your convictions. But if you confronted him too much,
right,
it was going to go back. I saw in the documentary, so Alex Greenfield is in there. I worked with Greenie on creative. Him and Vince would have these shouting matches, and sometimes Vince would love them, And sometimes it would be, you know what, the hell with this guy. I don't ever want to listen to him again.
Right.
You could never figure out that middle ground.
Yeah.
How'd you survive living in Stamford, by the way?
Whatever happened to Vince?
we still don't know. The lawsuit's still going on. Janelle Grant came out this week. The woman who accused him is on a crusade about NDAs. Most likely it's going to go to arbitration. Most likely it's going to settle out of court and she's going to get paid. Vince will never take over WWE again, but they'll probably find a way eventually to put him in the Hall of Fame and let him say goodbye.
He's an attorney, by the way, Raven. That's why he knows it. Yeah.
How do you become a WWE writer if you're an attorney?
I was a writer first, then left to go to law. I knew I was going to go to law school eventually, so I had a chance to go work at WWE. That was one of my dream jobs because I didn't take enough chair shots to the head and I was an idiot. And then went to law school. And of all the lawyers, I have more hair than Frank Smith, and that's really all that matters.
I love Frank Smith. He's one of my best friends.
I've known Frank for several years now. I met him down. I'm in South Florida. I'm in Palm Beach. So
I grew up in Lake Worth.
I'm in Boca Raton right now.
Right. Nice.
So not that far. In fact, when my first time seeing you were in GWF because you were billed from being from Palm Beach.
Yep.
Which we used to love as kids. And GWF was wild because it was, if you only watch WWF programming, kids, they don't understand this. Like there was no internet. All you watch is WWF. And then there's this show on ESPN it's not WCW and it's not WWF. And it's got guys who then you suddenly see on WWF and WCW programming. It was like mind blowing when you're 8, 9, 10 years old.
Well, not only that, but it was on every day.
Yeah.
And at 4:00, so you could, you come home from school and you go, whoa, watch wrestling.
What was your experience in GWF like? Because they didn't touch on that in the documentary at all.
You can only get so much stuff in 2 hours.
Of course.
I'm surprised he got it in as much as he did.
I know there was a
lot
lot
without it looking overcrowded. It didn't feel overcrowded.
Yeah, it was a good balance for all that. But yeah.
Yeah, Global was fun. I mean, that's one of my favorite life stories in it. Me and Bagwell we're driving to the airport. So me and Bagwell were facing each other. We used to ride together and fly together because we were both out of Atlanta. And so a couple of funny adventures with me and Buff. One time he was so late to pick me up. By the time we got to the airport, there was no time to park his car. So he just pulled a brand new, whatever year it was that year's model Jeep, pulled it up to the front of the airport where the baggage claim guys are, where the checking section is. Pulled up, threw the keys to some guy who was standing around, and said, "Here, take these." And then we ran down to the airport and ran down into the airport and made our flight. And his Jeep was towed away, but it was a brand new Jeep. But he was like, "Fuck it, we got to make the show." And then one time we were leaving the show, we were wrestling each other, so we were on last. And there's a late flight we can usually make, but it's a rush. So we got to really hustle to make the flight to get home, so we don't have to stay an extra day. And because then you'd have to stay, because for some reason the way the tickets were is you had to stay over a Saturday, and I think we did tapings on a Friday or something. So you'd have to stay till Sunday for no reason. So you'd have a day of nothing. But if you get out Friday night, they'd allow you to do that on the ticket. I don't know, it was weird or something. So so he's like, "All right, we got to get out of here quick. We got to make the flight." The flight was like 9 o'clock, and the matches ended at like 8 or something. I don't know. And so he's in it. So I'm in the ring after he leaves. I'm selling, because he's the handsome stranger then with his Robin mask on.
Yeah.
And so he goes back to the ring. He changes clothes real quick and gets the car ready. Has the door open. All I got to do is get to the back, get my bags, and dive in. So I dive in the passenger seat, throw my bags in the back, dive in the passenger seat. We take off driving, doing 80 miles an hour. All of a sudden, we're in the highway, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I'm like, "Look out for and a tire must have flipped off, came off a truck, on the other side of the highway, you know, like an 8-lane highway, and came rolling across the median and was coming for dead center between the two of us.
Whoa.
And luckily his reflexes are better than mine. He was already, as I'm like, look out for that. And he's already swerving out of the way. I quickly turn around to see behind me. The car behind us swerves out of the way. The car behind him gets hit with it and goes into a tailspin. We didn't have time to help or watch. We had to make the flight. So then we keep hauling ass, get to the rental car place, but the shuttle's just leaving. And so we know it's gonna be a while for another shuttle comes back to take its place, you know, to pick us up. So we're screwed, and we're trying to get the guy to stop, but he won't wait for us. And so I get some guy in a pickup truck. We give him some money or something, or he offered to give us a ride. And so I'm still in my wrestling gear, so I'm trying to change out of it while he drives us to the airport from the rental car place in the pickup truck. And all of a sudden we hit a bump. I start to go flying out of the back of the truck, and Bagwell grabs me by the seat of my pants, pulls me back in. We make the flight. And so now I'm like, okay, we got to go out tonight after all this nonsense. So
Yeah,
we're playing. We have nothing to do on the flight, so we're playing cards. So we're playing War. Remember War?
Oh yeah.
Game.
Yep.
We're playing War for shots at Jack. And so now we're gonna go out, and we get out, and we go to the club anytime, and it's empty. There's not a soul in there. And we just tapped out for the day. By then we're so exhausted anyway. We gave up. But it was one crazy night. But we call it the death tire, because that tire almost killed us.
Yeah, he saved your life twice, basically, Buff.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Holy smokes.
Yeah, so that was a typical trip for global wrestling. Typical adventure.
That sounds normal. Wrestling is the strangest line of work. I mean, the stories that people tell that are like completely, even when you're talking about it in the beginning, and you're like, you know, the chair shots to the head and the drugs and all that. It's outside of Lance Storm, I don't know a single person that doesn't check off 5, 6, 7 of those boxes.
Yeah. Lance Storm is the only person that never took pain pills for the matches, after the matches.
Yeah, doesn't seem like you would.
But I don't. But I maintain that the addiction is your own. But like, you don't need to take pain pills most of the time. You know, there are times when you need it, but then you don't. You know, the reason people stay on it though is because of addiction, not because of the business. I'll maintain that, and I was a huge addict. You know, well, my addictionologist said, he goes, you may not be an addict, but I never seen anybody abuse drugs like you do.
Right. What you mentioned too.
So I was proud of that at the time.
Yeah.
Now I'm disgusted with myself for being proud of
it. There is a balance to it for sure. Something that you talked about too, and you mentioned earlier in the interview, was mental health and going therapy and everything. I think it certainly speaks to being able to do that and having some self-realization of everything. When you kind of think back and like reflect on your career at certain points, is there a lot of things you're like, man, I wish I would have applied this kind of therapy tactic and I could have got a little bit differently? Is there certain things that you kind of think of when it comes to that?
Yeah, I wish I would have had moderation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I found I was good at taking drugs. And so I wanted to be the best at something. So I wanted to be the best at taking drugs, which is really stupid.
Yeah.
You know, but my heroes were Keith Richards, you know, and guys like that. So, you know, elegantly wasted.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's a stupid way to live your life. And it's embarrassing now, and it's embarrassing that I'm still proud of it in a slight way, you know. When I'm lucky, I'm alive, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I am suffering with some side effects, you know. So it's not like I got away scot-free, no pun intended.
No. But you know, there's that Keith Richards, that Hunter S. Thompson. It's the stuff that we're thrust upon, that there's a romanticism to it. Of
yes.
I can survive all this. And I mean, the Vince McMahon quote was that he doesn't do cocaine because if I did it, I would have to do all of the cocaine. I'd have to snort more than all the boys. and that was what kept him away from some of those drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's and it is. It's just I think in a way too, it's just a portrait of your life at the same time too. So I mean, there's not the element of pride that comes in with it. It's kind of just makes sense in a lot of ways too. I think. Hey, something that I thought was cool too was you mentioned how you got attached to Dusty, like as a fan, starting off. What was your first impression when you got to kind of meet him and then kind of interact with him from, you know, a booking creative standpoint then as well?
I always liked Dusty. Dusty was always good for me. Like he always liked me. So I really, you know, it was great. I mean, he's the most over guy ever, you know, like just ridiculous, you know, an overweight guy with curly hair, you know, but he was so athletic and so charismatic. It's just, it was weird. Like when I was in 5th grade and I was 10, I lived in Milwaukee, Wisconsin for a year. My dad went to, you'll like this, Robert. My dad went to work for the Milwaukee Jewish Chronicle.
There we go.
He decided Hawaii. Eventually we moved to Milwaukee. Like, what a waste of time. But my dad had decided he wanted to give back to the Jewish community, so he left the Philadelphia Inquirer and the Philadelphia Daily News and all the Philadelphia main papers that he'd worked for to go work for the Milwaukee Jewish Chronicle.
What a change of pace.
You're staring at me blankly.
Oh, no, I'm listening. It was a lag there for a minute.
Pace. And, oh, yeah, I just realized that you're frozen.
Yeah, there's a little bit.
Yeah, now I'm freezing up.
No,
I think my computer's been real.
Uh-oh.
Oh.
Raven, if you can hear us, maybe exit and enter back in. Sometimes that helps. But yeah. I know that lag has been happening here just once in a while. I don't know if it's a StreamYard thing sometimes too.
Way to throw StreamYard under the bus.
They suck. StreamYard does suck though.
But they got us back in what we needed. But yeah, it's most likely that Ravens thing froze and it'll pop back in.
I'll text him real quick.
No, this is fine. No, leave this in. This is absolute gold. Because then we can just superimpose like under his lips and make him say whatever we want.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
There we go. He'll pop back in. But really interesting stuff so far. I had a whole list of questions. I told you I was going to go through them, and some of them just naturally got to touch upon them. I had GWF on there, and Goldberg and the game, and Frank Smith coming up, which I love. So I knew Frank. Yeah, Frank, and I told you a lot of folks in there that came from my world. Hopefully, Raven's able to jump back in, but
yeah, I thought the documentary was really awesome actually, and it was just I was surprised how much they concentrated too just on the ECW aspect. I know that was a big part of his career, but I was kind of surprised that they didn't get a little bit more of the after effect with WWE, but they did cover that too.
They did a little bit, but I think what's interesting is, we've seen so many different documentaries about ECW and Dark Sides and all that, and there was still new stories. There was still new footage. A lot of that fan footage was wild. There was footage in the hotel lobbies.
That was nuts.
People taking. Good on them for digging that up. I don't know who on their production side was able to find those, but that was a blast. I think one of the interesting pieces in there is they show when Raven goes back to TNA. It was against all odds a couple years ago, and it was a Moose Sami Callihan Clockwork Orange match, and they managed to show the footage where it's Raven going over the match with the guys and then showing the spots during the match and how they evolve.
Right.
And that's a really fun thing if you are a wrestling fan to get a chance to watch that and see. And it's funny because having worked with Sammy and with Moose, and the way that they talk is exactly what happens when most wrestlers are laying as like, and then I do boom, 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 and then he does this, and then bang, and then I pull the thing out, and then there we go. and it somehow makes sense in their brains.
It really makes you think too about like how much creative minds like Raven and stuff like that probably go underutilized in a lot of these promotions where it's just, you know, I mean, we mentioned AEW a lot and how that comes into play. And like, it's just like, why don't like Tony Khan, he like bend the ear of some of these guys and really heed their advice and what they might be able to bring to the product in a lot of ways.
The most frustrating thing about for me, for Raven, was, I was listening to this Van Fleet interview. He stopped watching wrestling in like 2003. So because he's a completionist, and he's like, well, if I'm not watching wrestling, I can't just go back and just jump in from now. And there are so many things in the modern wrestling world that I can only imagine what he would have. Hell, imagine what would have happened if he was watching Raw on Monday and saw what happened with Bronson Reed going down with his injury, and the way that they were able to call that audible. Assuming he comes back, like I kind of want to know if he's seen any of MJF stuff.
It's a great point.
I feel like that's a dude, because they did show footage of him at the other promotion that we do not discuss here on this show. But some of the folks that he was working with included Jacob Fatu.
That's right. Right. That was a pleasant surprise seeing him kind of make a little cameo and all that. So
there was nothing pleasant about that section of the documentary. Let's be perfectly honest. I also do love that he was just like, so what happened with Vince?
Yeah, that's right.
It's a natural, because even if you're totally disconnected from wrestling, like it's got to be a wild thing. But I'm glad he gets along with Bischoff. Now, there's a number of people who have kind of said they hated him at one point, and now they do kind of get along with him. And it's the downside of when you are the guy in the office.
Mm-hmm.
You become the lightning rod and the fault point for everything. So I'm glad they've made some sort of a detente.
Yes. No, it was interesting to get from his college friends' perspectives to his colleagues' perspective in the business, like from Sandman, you name it. But like to see how he kind of was, even outside of wrestling, it was understandable why like he was like his own victim in a lot of ways, that, the mistakes that he's made and stuff like that. But you could also see it was a very great portrait and an understanding. Like if you fans happen to go watch the documentary, you'll see a full encompassment of Raven and how
the biggest frustration I had was you watch it and you're like, if this guy would have been around 10 years later, starting out with all this stuff, I look at the Young Bucks, and I don't even know who the Young Bucks are, but those guys making their own merchandise, selling their own shirts, getting into Hot Topic, making themselves a global name, like that would have been Raven. When Raven talks about assembling his gimmick, and it was the cutoff jeans and the flannel and concert shirts. If he would have, instead of just doing concert shirts, made his own branded shirt and just sold it, holy crap! Like the amount of money that's left on him. Maybe I'm glad he's not here right now, because I don't know how thrilled he would have been to know about how much money he probably left on the table.
I'm sure he's thought about it.
I mean, that was the thing with ECW. Like all those guys who had merch, he created the Dudleys.
Mm-hmm.
The Dudleys merch was insane. Taz, who designed all the merch, probably did very well for himself. Raven never really had a great iconic shirt design.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, he had band shirts on it, and he made a great point in the documentary too. He was like, if like people realized like they started wearing shirts after I did, I'd be a millionaire if I made all the money off of that too on top of it. And
well, yeah, but I think that was also I'm going to wrestle with a shirt on, so I don't have to necessarily do some. So that in and of itself, a lot of wrestlers owe a debt of gratitude to him. And one of the frustrating things is when I remember watching once ECW went away and another promotion took over that spot on Sunshine Network, the promotion we don't name on here. One of the first things I remember seeing on that show was the Raven CM Punk feud.
Oh,
which was out of this. That was what put Punk on the radar for me for the first time. I had never seen CM Punk before. So when I was on creative, I'm like, we have this dude in OVW. I'm like, my God, how do we get this guy up on here? And it's like, I'd want to ask Raven, like, is this an inspiration? Is it cool to see these guys that have become sort of inspired by you? Who's taken on this mantle? He ain't going to know, because he's not going to know a lot of these guys. But like Bray Wyatt and all of that stuff, it all feels very Raven-esque.
I think the funny thing too is he mentions, revenge and stuff like that, and literally just like picked it up, played it once. He's like, oh, I'm done with it. That was a huge part of my life. you know, and to think like I used Raven a lot on that game.
He was the most fun character to play in that game.
Yes, because you could sit him in the corner, you could do all his different things like that. It was fantastic, and like
he did all the taunts. He looked cool.
Yes. So to think about the reach that he's had just for wrestlers, not just fans, but the wrestlers themselves and the impact he's made. It's just like, it is understated how much of like he should really go to the W Hall of Fame.
Well, that's the biggest disappointment. This was always the thing in Vince world, and it is now. It's WWE controls who exists and who doesn't.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And having been there for the ECW one night stands and the revival and all that, Raven was not a huge part of any of that. He was, I mean, in the Rise and Fall documentary, they do talk about him a lot, but he did not get the due that he probably deserves. And the idea of a WWE Hall of Fame, he even says in the documentary, I'm not going to be in the Hall of Fame because I was never on top in WWF or WCW. And it's like, well, have you seen some of the guys they've put in?
Right. Some of the people,
you know, all due respect to Coco Beware, but
he's always the litmus test.
Coco, I mean, Coco was a talented gimmick. Like, it worked. It's just, yeah, that guy, Raven is the guy, one of the guys you think of ECW. He's one of the, you know, he said that there's the 10 guys of WCW. Raven's one of the 10 guys of ECW. And I think that the influence of the guys in ECW has been a lot more impactful than what guys did in WCW. Like, not just Raven, but who really did their best work in WCW?
For sure. I mean, yeah, the only argument you could probably make is like the Outsiders, but even that you could argue back because Razor Ramon Diesel kind of aspect of it all too.
I mean, what Nash did as
DDP.
Razor, or as Diesel, I'm sorry, as you know, WWF champion headlining WrestleMania, it's probably more impactful because he was never 1A in WCW.
Right.
Hogan was always 1A of the NWO. So Hall and Nash were never the main event guys. Maybe Goldberg did his best work in WCW, but that's because he was their one homegrown talent.
DDP, Sting are the only ones I could maybe think of otherwise.
Maybe, yeah, I think DDP and Sting, you can make an argument for that, but Sting was like WCW before it was WCW.
For sure. Yeah, that's true too.
I'm talking about the guys who, you know, came into there, but it's like, you know, even what Raven did in WWF didn't blow the doors off, but he wasn't really given the opportunity for that to happen.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
But you go back and watch those Sunday Night Heat shows that he was on, he still made the most of every opportunity that he was given.
Yeah. It
was part of Mania 17.
To that point, though, it was really frustrating as a fan to see him go to WWE and like get excited for him being there, and then like, what the hell is they not doing with Raven? It just
everybody knew that was going to be the case. Who did Vince really bring in from elsewhere and give them that kind of an opportunity? He didn't do it for Dreamer. He didn't do it for Taz. Certainly didn't do it for Sabu and Sandman in the limited times that they were there. The Dudleys were probably the most successful outside of Rob Van Dam.
Yeah,
and I put Rob as an asterisk because when Rob first came in as the Mr. Monday Night gimmick with Jerry Lawler years earlier, they were already grooming him to be a kind of a WWF guy.
Yeah. Well, Raven did get back to me. He said that he's trying to get control of his mouse for some reason. It's not letting him log out. So I said, no problem. But so computer tech issues. Damn it, Dom and Raven.
Yeah, I'm going to find a way to blame Dom for this. So, but you know, it gave us a chance to chat with Raven for a little bit, kind of spitball a little bit after. Still got a lot more questions. So at some point we will try to bring Raven back. But you can get Nevermore, the Raven documentary on Prime. It's worth the $4.99 rental. I'm not going to tell somebody to go spend their money if it's not and be like, you could just watch a Dark Side on Vice and get the same thing. That ain't the case here. They go deep. It is a great biography of Raven. It's kind of that cradle to the, you don't want to say cradle to the grave, man's still here, but it's like you go from his childhood all the way up to right around now. A lot of great random cameos, a lot of great insights. Friend of the show, Blue Meanie, is on there. Friend adjacent of the show, Tommy Dreamer, is great in there. Billy Corgan of the Billy and the CW,
yes,
is featured there.
Like I said, Robert, I thought he had the most poignant statement about Raven in general, just to encompass who he was as a creative mind and everything like that. I thought it really set up the documentary in a great fashion and was a great way to kind of introduce everybody to Raven.
I think it worked. I think it's one of those things where if you got a non-wrestling fan who's around with you, they're still going to find it pretty damn interesting because it really shows the ups and downs of this business like it would any other business. And it's like when you watch that movie, The Wrestler, dude, I didn't know he was a stripper.
I did not either.
That was the weirdest thing where I'm like, wait, what? And he said it so casually. He's like, oh yeah, back when I was stripping. I'm like, huh?
Did you know the Ginger story too? In Portland?
I did not know the Ginger story. That's fantastic. Some of the clips in this thing are the local. I'm not going to spoil it, but there's a local ad he did in Portland.
Oh my god!
That has now been living rent free in my brain ever since then. But we will be back as we are every Monday through Friday at noon Eastern on a plethora of platforms, including WW_Creative_ISH X account, the at Dominic DeAngelo X account. Not at the Raven Effect, though. Go follow Raven on there. Also on YouTube on Rumor and Innuendo and Studio One Sports. Again, you can get Nevermore on Amazon Prime. Go rent it, you cheap bastards. And on behalf of the man who probably destroyed Raven's internet, Dominic DeAngelo, I'm Robert Karpeles. Best of luck in your future endeavors.
What about me? What about Wi-Fi?
Shh.